Hey guys, Market Movers here with our first ever podcast. We're calling it Who's That Entrepreneur? And the entrepreneur we have with us today is Mr. Ciaran Brohan, Jiu-Jitsu brown belt under Andy Rhino, Polaris veteran, Grapple Fest veteran, and also Irish Open champion. He owns his own gym here in Middleton in County Cork, which he's had since 2017, so we're going to get him to get into that. Before that, just remember, this is not financial advice, nor is it life advice. This is our first ever podcast, so bear with us. And yeah, we'll get straight into it. Just make sure you follow us on Instagram. We'll have all Ciaran's socials on in the description as well. Join our Discord, hit the like button, subscribe.
And we're going to get straight into it.
All that jazz. Let's go. Intro.
So, Ciaran, introduce yourself. Who are you? What brought you to the stage where you are at now? What do you do other than just this gym? Give us a bit of introduction for what you are and what you do.
Yeah, so Gino knows me because he trains with me. But yeah, I'm training Jiu-Jitsu 12 years now at this stage, so I've been at it since I'm 17, 18, debatable depending on who you ask kind of question. But yeah, I'm training since I was 17, 18, trained MMA first, then Jiu-Jitsu, and then kind of just went 100% into Jiu-Jitsu after a few years of training. So then, yeah, I guess kind of like my Jiu-Jitsu journey was like, I started in CIT MMA, which was like this, literally like pulling mats out in a hall, kind of like, and no one knew what we were doing at all. It was just like some guys like pretty much just beating the shit out of each other in the hall, which was like, yeah, I can still remember some of the stuff I was trying to do and be like, looking back, what was I at like?
And did you have any experience before that, or you just went to get beaten up?
Literally zero martial arts experience. I pretty much was like, I did like regular sports the whole way up my like teenage years. Played rugby, rowing, but never martial arts. Kind of, I don't know, my parents never really decided to put me in or anything. And like, I kind of think that was a good thing in a way, because I feel like if you start very young, by the time you get to like, you know, like the time you hit like 20, or like not even 20, when you hit 16, 17, you hit those years and you're just like, you don't want to do what your parents want you doing. And then you get a bit, and you know, time as well, like if you do, you know, 10 years or something, you're going to probably get sick of it eventually, you know, especially when you're younger. So I think that kind of benefited me in a way.
It's kind of like you're learning a language. Like if you're learning a language when you're like 5 to 10, you're just like, or if you start when you're 10, you're just not going to have the same level of like aptitude at it, if that makes sense. If you start when you're younger instead of starting when you're like 17, so you have like 12-year-olds and stuff that are coming in here. They have like a 5-year head start on what?
Yeah, they're going to murder me.
I seen like even in the gym with like 15, 16-year-olds, and I was like, oh, I wish I started at their age. Like that is nuts.
Like when I started at 17, I suppose, like, because Jiu-Jitsu is still quite a young martial art, so I'm probably what, like 30 years old. Like, you know, it's not really that old of a martial art. Maybe 40 years old. So like when I started, like 17 would have been pretty young for Ireland, I suppose. You know, there's a lot of like, I'd have been quite young to start, because there's no like clubs the way there are now. Like there was no really kids jiu-jitsu programs back then, you know.
There's so many clubs now as well, especially in Cork.
So if you were starting like in CIT, like you probably would not going to recommend that as a good place to start, because like I went to CIT and I never saw anything. I never saw it as a society, or I never saw any of them sort of things.
I'm not saying it was a bad place to start, like, but it was just like, you know, it was like the guy who was coaching us at the time was he a blue belt? Maybe.
Yeah,
and maybe. It was just kind of a guy who was like, he was doing MMA in the MMA clinic at the time, which doesn't even, like, they actually closed, but like he was training MMA and then coming and coaching us, and like it was a little bit like the blind leading the blind. Like we did learn a bit, but like at the same time it was like, but that was kind of my aim. And then I started training MMA clinic, and then that got me into jiu-jitsu. So, you know, it did work out, but it was just a bit of a long together. Yeah, it was a bit of a long roundabout way of getting to where I got, you know.
Yeah, and then like, so I suppose from there, then obviously you trained jiu-jitsu for years. You were competing all the way up, white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, and then you decided to open your own gym in 2017. Was it?
2018.
2018. Sorry, it's written on the wall in front of me. Yeah. Yeah, so 2018 you went out and opened your own gym. So what was the decision behind that? And so what age were you then? You were 27, 26?
What, 3 years ago? So 26. Yeah,
Yeah.
26. Yeah. So I think the logic with opening my own gym was, I suppose there were kind of a few factors, but like I think the biggest factor was like I wasn't 100% happy with like how I was training, and like I wasn't 100% happy with like the approach that I was taking to my training, and I felt like I needed to take more responsibility for that. And I suppose that kind of combined with the fact that like I did get given an offer to start coaching it out of a sports club, which kind of like it just sort of like, you know, fell into place really nicely for me.
Yeah.
And then like I just found like, you know, coaching has always been like something with like in jiu-jitsu I'm like obsessive over the like I just have like one of those minds that like I obsess over details with coaching, so it just sort of naturally fell into place for me. And yeah, to be honest, like I didn't expect it to grow as quick as it grew.
Yeah.
Like I started it, and it was like, you know, I started it in just a regular gym. Like we were renting space off a gym owner, and like within 6 months we had like 20 members or 30 members, and I was like, this is getting bigger than I ever expected.
Yeah, straight away almost. Yeah.
And we ended up having to go to a full-time unit because we just needed the extra space, and then we needed the hours more than the space, to be honest. The hour, like, you know, when you're renting space off another gym, they also need the space. So when you try to ask for more space, you're not going to, well, it's hard to get.
So you were limited, like, so that was a bit of a motivation to move.
Yeah, and then that's when we really took, like, I can still remember my parents being like, don't sign any leases. Like, they were like, do not commit yourself to a 5-year lease somewhere like you don't know. And I was like, yeah, but we kind of have, like, it was like, either we did it or the club is not going to continue to progress and expand, you know. So it's probably one of the, not calling it a risk, it was kind of, I suppose, a calculated risk, but yeah, it was a bit of like in the traditional Irish sense, it was a risk, I suppose.
But I suppose in that sense you continued working full time while opening the gym, and you still continue to work full time now. How do you balance that? Like, that has to be tough. You're working, what do you do?
I'm a web developer in Teamwork in Cork City. And it's tough. Like it's hard. Pretty much. Like I suppose it's like the hardest part is like just, you know, making sure I'm getting enough sleep and like.
How many hours a week do you think you're putting in? Because you like, I'll be texting you at night time. You're watching John Danner videos to prepare for another class, and
probably I'd say I'm probably doing like. The gym is probably more hours than work. Like my work contract is like 37 and a half hours, I think. So I'm probably putting in like 50, 60 hours into the gym, like without realizing, like, because I'm constantly like researching. Like that's probably one thing I think a lot of people don't realize is, and I don't know, like, you know, other coaches probably do it to the same degree, but I don't think other coaches, like, I definitely know one or two, like a couple of friends of mine do put in that time. But that's probably the biggest time sink, is like, you know, researching, watching instructional videos, watching like footage. Like I watch it, like the Nogi Worlds was last week. I've downloaded like all of the finals matches for brown and black belts, male, and I'm going to go through all of them. Because like if you're not constantly researching and constantly like trying to learn, you immediately will just like, you'll just stop growing as a just, you know, personally as a competitor, but also as a coach. You need to constantly be looking at like, what are the guys doing at the Worlds, because that's the stuff that it might not have hit Ireland yet, but it's going to hit Ireland in a few years.
You can't like assume that you know everything. You have to always continue to advance as much as possible. To keep on top
like it's like that thing. It's like if you, I don't know who that quote is, but it's like if you think you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. You know, so you kind of have to take that mentality. Now it's a bit easier these days with the internet. You can kind of, you know, the internet is your room.
Yeah, pretty much. Everything's on it.
Everything is accessible, like very easy. Like you can keep on top of stuff a lot easier than like 20, 30 years ago. You have to go to events to watch people to figure out what they're doing.
Like I remember at the time, like I have like PDF books of like Eddie Bravo teaching rubber guard. Before there was any instructional DVD, like, and the instructionals were DVDs back then. Like there was no such thing as like BJJ Fanatics or any
of that kind of stuff. And then I suppose you're affiliated then with Team Rhino, which is one of the biggest MMA affiliations in Ireland, probably. How did that come about? Because you weren't training with them all along.
So it kind of came out in two ways, I suppose. Like, so when I started my own gym, I kind of had like, I suppose like it's going to happen every time when you like, you know, go out on your own. You have to kind of face like a bit of a decision as like, jiu-jitsu is like, it's like very much like, you know, lineage is super important as well. Like, so, you know, I kind of had to like think about what I wanted to do with it, and I kind of thought about it for about 6-7 months before I made any call. Like the gym was like running as T45 unaffiliated with anyone for 6 months.
So you started off with, yeah, okay,
it
that was
kind
my
of
next
just
question.
completely unaffiliated for the first 6 months of its life, and then I just like, to be honest, I was like listening to, so Darragh O'Connell was one person I was listening to a lot, and then Andy. They were both had like they were on a few podcasts, and I just remember listening to Andy, and I think it was the Paddy Houlihan podcast, the No Shame podcast. No Shame, isn't it? Yeah. So that podcast, I was listening to that, and
Andy's the owner of Rhino, just in case anyone doesn't know that.
Yeah. So he, I just remember listening to him, and I remember thinking like, he just said something about like, he does like, you know, his own affiliation, like there's a, you know, part you have to pay a fee and all that, but he's like, the fee is reasonable. It's not like, you know, thousands of euros that you're like, you know, you're struggling to make that money. And he's just like, I ask a small fee and then I let them work away. Like he doesn't really like get too involved in the nitty gritty of like how I run the gym. Like, you know, he kind of, we touch base, and we kind of like, if he needs me to do something, he'll say it. You know, vice versa, I can ask him for help or advice. And he's always there at the big event, like some of the bigger events, like the Irish IBJJF Open, all that kind of stuff. He's there to help and corner and stuff. But like, he's just like, I don't know, I just remember listening to that and being like, yeah, no, Andy is someone I kind of like, I look up to him. He's a big part of Irish Jiu-Jitsu and MMA. Like, he's one of the first black belts in the country. And I just remember looking up to him and just being like, no, like, I think Andy's someone I could approach. And I just remember then, because I have friends in Team Rhino from competing. So like Paul Brown is one of them, and you know, I remember saying it to Paul, just being like, do you have any idea what the process is? And he was just like, sure, come on up and train and we'll have a chat about it. So I ended up going up and having a chat with Paul, and then the rest, then he kind of put me in touch with Robbie Brennan, who's one of Andy's black belts, and he kind of runs the affiliation side of things. And then put me in touch with Andy, so then I kind of went up and actually trained and talked to Andy, and he was like, yeah, of course. So.
And would you recommend, let's just say, I know not everyone watching this is out there trying to open jiu-jitsu academies, but would you think that was definitely a better decision to have someone backing you in affiliation like that back in the gym?
You kind of you need to have like a good lineage. I think it's like, it's something we kind of forget about a little bit. Like, I think especially where jiu-jitsu's gone, I think there's a lot of gyms opening up and they're just kind of going the I'm my own man route, and like, you know, but then you end up like, it's like, where does your promotion come from? And like,
because you need black belts. So.
You do need your black belt, and you do need like black belts kind of like who are like constantly like kind of critiquing you and stuff. And I find like, you know, if you look at like the lineage with Andy, it's like 4 or 5 steps back to Carlos Gracie, I think it is, and like, you know, it's not like many steps. You know, whereas like if you look at other, and it's not saying it's like a worse affiliation that it's more steps, but like, you know, you're kind of closer to the root. And you know, that was one thing with Andy. I was like, look, at least being part of, like, if you get promoted by Andy, you earned that promotion. Like, I know that for a fact. Like, he doesn't hand out belts easy. Like, so you know, that was another thing for me. It's like, I wanted my belt to be from someone who, like, Andy's internationally renowned. So like, if I say I'm an Andy Ryan black belt or brown belt, they know who I'm talking about straight away.
Everyone knows, no matter where you are.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me, you know.
So it's kind of like, it's a good like advertising and like building your brand, so like you're kind of backed by a person. So it definitely helps resonate with everyone around you. Even if they don't know it, they can look up the name.
And you'll find it straight away.
And as well as that, like, another big factor is like, you've got to think about how many gyms you're affiliated, like, linked to, because like, Team Rhino is a big affiliation in Ireland. We have like, I don't know, I actually don't know, there's like maybe 14 to 20 gyms as part of it. And like, you know, if I'm traveling, I probably have a gym that I can go drop in and say hi to the lads. You know, there's very kind of, it's cool to have those links for the lads, because I know even some of the guys here have been up north. They jump in with some of the lads up north. And, you know, it's cool to have those links.
Are you the only Cork affiliation?
We are, I think we're actually the only one down south, really.
Waterford, I think.
Waterford and Cork are kind of, there's none in Kerry yet.
Sick. And then I suppose goals, like I know you're talking about you want to try and make place bigger or expand. So let's just say 5-year goals. Like what are you thinking for yourself? And obviously you're a professional jiu-jitsu player. Like, so you technically speaking, you're a professional jiu-jitsu player. So you obviously have a career, and then you also have an academy that you're building as well. Like, so for let's say 5 years time, you're 35 or 34 years of age.
So like I suppose not saying I'm kind of on the way out, but you know, I've been competing hard for like 6-7 years, like at this stage, and you know the body does start to feel it a little bit. Like there's been a bit more aches and pains in the last year than I've ever felt, and like I've been working hard to kind of work out those issues.
You do a lot of yoga.
I do an awful lot of yoga, to try mitigate those problems and stop them from getting worse. But like I kind of realized like, okay, I probably have, you know, maybe 5 years left of like, you know, really hard, like when I say competing, like I mean like, you know, pushing the highest level I can as an adult competitor, because like otherwise I'll be going up to the masters brackets, which is the plus 30 brackets.
And
I'm not trying to say that they're not as competitive, but it's just like, you know, adult is the hard.
That's where the peak performance is. Like,
so I kind of know like myself, I probably am kind of coming towards the tail end of competing as adult, and I want to give myself another, like, you know, good run and try to compete a lot at, like, you know, maybe another couple of runs out at Brown, maybe do the European, like if I can get the Europeans in at Brown, that'd be amazing. Don't know what will happen because the Portuguese Federation have to approve the Euros going ahead in Lisbon, so we don't know where we're at with that at the moment. And I want to try to do ADCC trials the next couple of years as well, because like ADCC is like the Olympics for Jiu-Jitsu. It's basically like if you make ADCC,
that's the top of the pops.
You pretty much made it.
So is it in the Olympics for Jiu-Jitsu?
No, it's not. So
there's talks of it, I think, wasn't there?
There's some weird unified grappling rules. But I don't know where that's at. It's in the World Games, but not the Olympics. So it's close, I suppose. So yeah, that's kind of my goal as a competitor, is just to kind of, I want to do everything I can. I'd like to do adult black belt worlds once. At least once. With the goal to just have it done, because, you know, being like competing at the black belt adult world is like, there's not many Irish competitors have done it. You know, there's a few from the aerospace that are starting to, but like it's a small crew, like, you know, so
100%.
It's something I'd like to do. And then for me as a coach, then, you know, I suppose one of my a philosophy I have as a coach is like, I never want to do something I never want to ask my students to compete on something that I haven't done. You know, I'd like to be able to say, oh well, I've done it before. It's not me kind of saying, oh go do the worlds there, Gino. And it's like Gino's just like, yeah, but you never did it, you know. So like, I want to at least be able to kind of say like, no, I have done it, you know. So then I know how to at least, and then I'd be more equipped to help them.
You can critique and you can advise them what to do and how to do it.
You've a lot of competitions coming up this year. 4 in December. Is it 3 in December?
3 in December.
And then 1 in February.
And 1 in February.
So you can actually fight that regularly.
Because like jiu-jitsu is very different to, I suppose, MMA and boxing, and like there's very little like damage. Like you'll be a bit sore, but you won't be like damaged. Whereas like boxing and other sports, you will be damaged. Like you'll physically be beat up. Like
and like even brain trauma and stuff like that. You don't get any of that unless you just.
I was wondering, because you're doing it every day. Like I was like, how are you not like getting hurt? Like
I am getting hurt.
But like to a point where you can't do it. Like,
like I suppose
actual injuries.
At the moment, like I'm coming here 5 days a week, really. Like and then some of them days are 2 or 3 hours, 2.5 hours long. Some of them, like so. Like you can just kind of do it, but then once you get an injury, you can get injured. You just have to be smart enough to avoid it. Like
it depends. Like, you know, I have a big thing of training smart, not hard with it. I don't want to be like training super tough all the time. Like I really try to be smart about how I'm spending the time in the gym, you know.
100%.
Which means more time in the gym, essentially.
Because like a lot of other sports and stuff, like you can get injured like after playing like one match or one training session, like you could have like a muscle tear or anything like that, but it just doesn't seem to be as regular.
Yeah, it happens, alright, knees and stuff like that.
We've had like I've seen injuries over the years, but it's all like it's either an accident or else there's people just training too hard.
Yeah.
It's
Talk a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So,
It's one of my many side projects. I'm a bit of a.
So you got this is your chance to plug it.
Yeah. I'm a bit like. My partner hates it like that. I spend all this time like basically every time I have one project kind of under control, I decided to pick up another. But I started like this learn jiu-jitsu thing. So a big part of my coaching style is very concept orientated, and like I try to teach the concepts behind what you're doing in jiu-jitsu. Because it's like if you understand the how and why it works, it's a lot easier to remember to do it. I find. Whereas if I just show people a technique, it's very much like, oh, that's just the technique, you know. And that was how I learned jiu-jitsu, and it took me very long to progress. Whereas I find like when you teach people the concepts, they like literally have a like little thing they can hang on to, being like, okay, well, this is. I might not remember where exactly my leg needs to go, but I understand the gist of it, and you can kind of make stuff happen just by understanding the gist. So then I started this like just a YouTube channel, basically focusing on those kind of like concept-led style of teaching. Now it's on a bit of a hiatus now because I'm moving house. Yeah. So I'm hoping to be back before. Like, I'd say I'll be back in the next few weeks because I think I'm going to have some time next weekend or the weekend after to do some video work with Danny, who helps me do the videos. So.
If no other idiots ask you to do a podcast on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, you're cutting into my video.
Like we'll plug, obviously we'll link all Ciaran's socials, everything will be down in the description, so you'll see all that in there anyway. You're doing pretty good though, like the videos, you have a good setup, like you kind of do a short 2-minute clip.
Yeah, so currently I have 2 formats, but I'm exploring a few other ones. So the current one, there's the 2-minute jiu-jitsu, which is literally, I'm just going to show you a little concept that help your game, or a technique that may help your game. And I'm trying to keep it under 2 minutes. I'm actually looking at maybe doing a minute long, because that would fit into YouTube or Instagram shorts and the kind of on TikTok.
They blow up like crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking of maybe doing like that format and doing it as a short rather than the
because people can watch it over and over again anyway. So it's
So that's one thing I'm looking at instead, and then the longer form where it's like maybe 5-6 minutes, I'm going through like in detail the technique. But I'm also looking at a couple of other like jiu-jitsu YouTubers, and like some of them are actually like doing like little concept-led match breakdowns and sparring breakdowns, and like I'm kind of thinking that could be another little angle, whereas like because then I don't have to be in the gym video and they can actually just sit down.
Like a reaction video. Kind of like
reaction. Sort of like a reaction video, but it'd be sort of like I'll watch maybe. I'll watch maybe Marcel. Let's take Marcel Garcia. I'll take him as an example, but I'll just break down his thing.
I watch Israel Adesanya break down his own. His own matches or something. Pretty good. I'm just conscious of our time now, so quick fire round to finish. Just a few questions. We're going to be doing this at the end of every podcast. We're going to ask people just stupid questions that people wanted to know. Shout out to Sean Sweetman for some of these ideas. These are the questions he wanted to know. Favorite naughty meal, so your cheat meal go-to. I know you like Supermax, but is that your...
Supermax is like my coming back from a competition meal, but like I think if there's any meal, like I I have an issue with garlic cheese chips.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm like garlic cheese chips, no matter where I get them from, I will always get them. So I probably shouldn't.
And that's filth.
That's so bad.
Like if you're not from Ireland, you probably don't even know what that is. Like, that's how filthy. The favorite drink, be it alcoholic or not.
Favorite drink. Probably coffee. I have a bit of a problem with coffee.
Yeah, me too.
I think the majority of people have a problem with coffee.
Caffeine or coffee of some sort in here. Favorite jiu-jitsu player, so past or present, I suppose.
Marcelo Garcia has to be. Like, if you look at like any of the like newer wave of guys coming up, it's like very, very rooted in what Marcelo is doing. So kind of.
I have a question.
Go on. You have permission.
If jiu-jitsu was an Olympic sport, would you put yourself forward to compete for Ireland?
Probably, yeah. I think I would. Like, then like it's a weird one because like I think when you compete in the Olympics, you're competing for your country a little bit, whereas like jiu-jitsu is very personal. In a way.
Yeah.
So it would shift the dynamic, I think, and I think it would be interesting. Like I'd love to.
It would definitely work because wrestling works.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
I think it would be.
It'd probably be gi.
Yeah,
it'd probably be gi.
Although to be honest, I don't know would it, because I feel like no-gi is more exciting for the viewers, because there's like the problem. Like I think this is like the nutshell of like why jiu-jitsu is like very slowly becoming a spectator sport. Gi matches can be like highly technical, and I love watching them from like a technical perspective.
Yeah.
But no-gi, it's just like faster, and there's a lot of stuff happening very fast. So no-gi can be way more exciting to watch.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It depends, I suppose, whether they're going for that route with the Olympics then. What besides jiu-jitsu? What do you do? What are you up to? Not a whole lot otherwise, but you've got hobbies.
Yeah, I suppose.
Interests, anyway.
I suppose video games, like most guys. Video games. I want to get into surfing and skateboarding. I don't know why.
Yeah, surfing's sick.
Surfing's
surfing. Well, you're in the right area for it, at least. Anyway.
I'm very close to a lot of the beaches. But surfing and skateboarding are two. Like I've been banned from skateboarding though by Laura, so I'm not allowed by skateboarding.
You're probably better off not skateboarding.
If you got injured, it's a big problem, though.
The gym is on.
I wouldn't. You'd probably avoid that one. And then right, so obviously we're trying to keep this as business orientated as we can. So not just someone opening a gym, but a young person going out on their own like you did, taking the plunge to open a business. Now you were lucky because you were able to go into business with something you're passionate about, and not everyone can do that. But what is your number one piece of advice, or your biggest lesson you learned in the last 5 years of going out and opening your own business and doing it on your own?
I say like it's like have a plan. Like I think a lot of people like open a gym or like I suppose just using jiu-jitsu gyms as well. They open a gym and they're like, they kind of open it and they're like, oh, I'll just open the gym. And they don't have like a plan as to how they're actually going to develop as a gym, or like how they're going to develop their business. Like I think a lot of people like will start like even like if they start selling t-shirts online, they kind of don't have like a scale plan at all. And I think that was one thing I kind of had it like from the day when I had like basically I had my plan as to how I was going to build up the gym numbers, and it stood to us because we grew. That's how we grew so fast because of that. I think just plan how you're going to grow it out, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'll start a business. And then they spend a lot of time on the logo, the branding, and then they kind of forget about just like having such a like it's not hard to do. Just spend a day, sit down and like plan it out.
Make sure things make sense. Like just dive into it. Cool, good stuff. Thank you very much, Ciaran. Thank you for being our first guest on Who's That Entrepreneur. Make sure you share with your friends. Hit the like button, comment. Ciaran, we're going to link all his stuff. He even sells clothes and everything, so we'll have links for everything on down in the description. Do you have anything you want to plug or say while you're here?
I suppose I better give my sponsors as plugs.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Thanks to Scramble Ireland and Scramble Brand for sponsoring my jiu-jitsu gear, and Improved Grappling for taking care of my strength and conditioning.
Nice. I suppose we better thank our sponsor. 35mm vintage. 35mm. So Sam is the market mover t-shirt on. Give him a spin, Sam, look at the back. 35mm vintage are making clothes. I've got their jumper, champion jumpers. They're down in the Marina Market, they're online, and they're in Kilshama, which I hope I'm pronouncing right.
I think
Mayo.
you said it wrong, but I'm not going to try it either.
Okay. Guys, thank you all very much, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, guys.